first Creative Morning of the year. And I know you're here and we advertised I'm going to talk about values. And that's what I'm going to talk about. But the theme for this year, but this month, is journeys, right? And I could tell you all about this journey. This is one side of my journey. I came from Italy to Stockholm in 2011. I had no contacts. I started to work in the tech world. Many times I was the only woman in the room. And then I managed to become CPO. Maybe you recognize some logos up there of really big companies. And I created my communities and I was on stages and I can tell you all about that. But that's not the journey that I want to talk with you about today. The journey that I want to talk with you about today starts instead here, in an office. And it was more or less a year ago. It was October 2024. No, 3. It's 2025, I'm not adjusted, 2023. And it was a Friday, like today, but it was in the afternoon. And I was in the office, but I was not finishing up, as you normally do, the last things before you go to the weekend. I was in a bathroom, and I was crying. And I couldn't put myself together. I was crying and crying and crying, and I ended up there after yet another meeting that I was in. And in this meeting, there was like circling around, endless discussion, and we couldn't find each other. And I felt that I was not doing my job. My job as CPO of that company, I thought that it was like to make us take a step forward, to taking decision, and to work with each other. And as much as I tried, I couldn't do it. And that's why I was in that bathroom and I couldn't stop crying. And it took a good while. I don't even know how long I stayed in that bathroom. But finally, I was like, okay, girl, put yourself together. I washed my face. I really listened carefully to see if someone was around. Then I opened the door and I stepped out. Really looked, there was just a couple of people. So I was like, okay, thanks God, no one is seeing me in this state. And then I started to think, how the heck did I end up in this bathroom in this state? And hopefully, you've never been in that bathroom. And hopefully, you never will be in that bathroom, in that situation. But maybe you recognize yourself in some of this, and please raise your hands if you do. Have you ever felt like you come out of the meeting that you are so frustrated that you don't really know where you want to bang your head? Yeah, many of us have been there. Or your voice is not heard. So that feeling that you're like, the words are coming out of your mouth, but they're not really sticking. And here comes my favorite, or least favorite, depends on how you feel about it. You are stuck. So like this feeling, you don't really know what it is, but you feel that you're in that freaking corner. I've seen quite some hands up. If you did not raise your hand, congratulations to you. But if you did, this talk is to you. So it's not about my story, but it's like how I managed to come out of that bathroom at that corner and be a little bit happier. And it's like, I'm not a scientist, I'm not like an expert, but I'm a person who has done this journey and want to share in the hope that someone can take some inspiration and concrete framework to do the journey themselves. And one thing that I find out is that many of these frustrations have one common denominator. And the problem is that there is a clash of values. And the values, let's start like, what do I mean when I talk about values? Values are things that every person thinks is really important, that value really high. Example, for me, one thing that I value really high is collaboration. I want to work with a team, I want to work with people, I really encourage a debate, I want, people to talk with each other. And on the other side of the table or on the other side of the screen, I have someone that is like, we need to go fast, we need to go for the highway, my way or the highway. We're not going to work together. Very well. That's just the reality of things. The problem with values is that they seldom shows up like, you see this palm trying to grow in the North Pole in the middle of the snow. It's really apparent that poor thing cannot make it, right? I mean, as much as it's trying, I mean, the leaves are falling out. But many times when you are that palm, you don't realize that you are in the middle of the snow. And that's because you don't take a lot of, you, me, everybody, take a lot of time to understand what is my values. How can I like get there? And this is what I think it's important, like to talk about value, how to approach them. And they will help you, and I found that they helped me not only to get out of frustration, but also for many other things. Values will tell you where to put your energy, how you can make your best impact, how you can collaborate better, and at the end of the day, how you can be happier. And I have some strong opinions, and this is one of those. I believe that the soft skills are the hard skills. So this is one of the reasons why I think this is really important. There's all this talk about AI and machines taking our jobs and you name it. I believe, and I mean, maybe it'll be wrong, but I mean, the machine will not be able to talk this like really difficult conversation human to human. And the people who take the time to find themselves and being able to handle those situations are the one that will like future-proof themselves. So this is why I'm here today talking about values. And what we'll talk about is how you can identify your values and how you can apply them. But before we do that, I just want to name the elephant in the room. Maybe some of you are sitting there on a Friday morning thinking, why the heck did I come here, like wake up really early and talk about values? I mean, it's like this fluffy thing that you're like, what is this even? And believe me, I was you. Because when I started this journey, my coach asked me, Francesca, what are your values? And I was like, I have none, I don't know, like complete, like zero, paralyzed, you know, like this like white page. And that's obviously not true. Everyone has values. But the problem with values, as when we talk about visions or when we talk about these really abstract things, is that you don't really know where to start from. So that's the thing, that what I realized in my journey is that I could use some of my skills in my line of work to work and find my values. And so what I did, I work with digital product development. How many here work with digital product development? Some of you. But even the other ones, as creatives, right? We always have to work with people. We have to find patterns from an idea. We have to collect insights. We have to find the vision. And this is exactly the things that I use to find my values. So let's go straight into it. So I'll show you what I've done and hopefully give you some inspiration. And the first step that I normally do when I work with product development is simple, which is looking at data. And now I'm gonna go all hippie on you because that's what my coach did with me. So when we started this journey, she was like, Francesca, follow your energy. And I was like, sure, what does that even mean? And actually I was like, okay, why did I even like pay this person to do this? But then I was like, okay, believe the process, follow the energy. So that's how I did it. So on the paper, it's pretty easy. So it's called an energy audit. It's a it's a table, right? So you put on this table like what is the time of the day, what you're doing, like with whom you're doing, and how is your energy. Like anything you can think about your energy. So these are just some examples. And by the book, you should do this as often as possible. There are people that say you should do it every hour, you should do it after every other meeting, you should do it every day. And nobody has time for that. I was like, okay, if you already give me this task that feels like I have to like note down everything I'm doing, I'm not gonna do it. So what I've done is instead, I marked down all my highs and all my lows. And that already gave me something. Like if you see here, for example, the problem for me was not the time of the day, but it was maybe the people that were in the meeting or the topic we were talking about. So this started to give me something and gave me some insights. And in product development, when I do have insights or, you know, when you start having like, okay, I have a half of idea, the first thing you do is like you try to step out of your head and go and talk to your customer. In this case, it's a bit tricky. In a way, you cannot really step out of your head because your customer is you. But the good side is like the customer is you, so the customer will always talk to you if you want to. So what I did user story mapping. And how many of you here know what user story mapping is? Quite many, so I don't have to explain it. So here is my Miro. You see it really small because there are pretty heavy personal stuff in there. So sorry, I'm not gonna share that. But I'm gonna go through how I did. And I'm pretty proud that I came up with this myself after like reading. I didn't find anything like this, but it was really helpful to me. So I started with my lifeline and with my experiences. So I put down everything, like not everything, everything I can remember or that was meaningful to me. Like at 17, I won a scholarship and I studied in Brazil. Or like I started to work with fashion after working really hard when I was in Milan. Or I moved to Sweden. So here you have all the highs. And then you have the lows. When I moved here and I couldn't find the job that I wanted and I felt like a failure. When my dad passed suddenly. So you see like highs and lows and you start like identifying something. So the next thing is insights. So what I could see, not like coming up with things, but looking at the things that I've done in my life, I could see, for example, that I'm really good at capitalizing of opportunities. So I go in a new environment, someone gives something to me, and I'm great at it. I mean, I come to Sweden and became CPO, one of the biggest tech company here with no network at all. I mean, that must be something. And I've done it like over and over, like in different contexts. At the same time, I sometimes am so good and connected the dots and connecting the people and solving the problem that I get stuck there. And I mean, if you see, like after all the highs, there are all the lows. And all the lows I identified that is because I felt that someone was choosing for me, so I was not taking actual steps myself. So this also brought me to my superpowers, that is adaptability. I adapt so great, and then I get stuck. And many times your superpower is also your kryptonite. Like what makes you great is also what can stop you. And I've done this work, and I also, pro tip, if you're brave enough, ask others. Ask your friend, ask your family, ask your colleagues, like what do they think is good with you? And with this you identify like what you're good at, and we're gonna get back to why this became really important to me. It's also, it gives you black and white, not what you have to do, but what you've already done. So this is like, just like clap on your shoulder, right? You already like overcome all those things. And so you have the data, what gives you energy, you know what you're good at, and then last step was like the most difficult, was creating the vision. And the vision is always the most difficult part to me. And here you see like, this is my notebook when I put down all my wishful thinking, all I want, all I wish, all I desire, everything. And it was like a mess, I couldn't find anything. So I worked with my coach, and she helped me find like, you know, some light in the middle of all this chaos. And at the end of the day, we put down these four values that you see that written in red. So this is basically like all the process that I've been through, and this process took some months, obviously. And the Miro, I'm still not done with it. I mean, some days I really don't want to talk with myself, and some parts are really too hard to handle. But if you're there thinking, okay, you promised us something concrete, and I mean, you made us do all this hippie stuff and energy, I mean, how is this helping us? Which I was also thinking, like, what am I doing here? But then I realized that what I've been doing is that I created a compass. Because with all of this, I'm like much more in understanding of where my energy goes, of all that I'm good at, not because, you know, I tell myself or someone tells me, because of the things that I've done before. And then I know where I want to go. So I can use this in different situations to take decisions. And I'm going to give you 2 concrete examples of how you can use those in your work situation to help you align with your values. So the first thing is collaboration. And how many people here have to work with people in their daily job? Everybody. So as I said, collaboration is like, I believe, the key skill that you have to develop. And once you are in touch with your values, there are seriously only two ways that you can do with collaboration. You have the happy path, right? And probably, hopefully, all of you have been in those meetings where, you know, you have the other person, and then like, even if you disagree, you have this yes and energy, and then you build on each other, and then you're like, everything feels really great. That is when I experienced there were alignment in values. So we were like optimizing for the same thing. We were thinking about the same, you know, direction, not necessarily the same solutions, but at least the same direction, or the same things were important. So all great here. Or you end up like me crying in the bathroom. And that's where you have conflict. But if I don't have like obviously the counterfactual, but if I had to be there like 1 year ago now with what I know, hopefully I would have not ended up in a bathroom. Because the difference that work with value did is that I can now take that conflict that felt extremely personal. I mean, in those meetings, it felt like it was against me, not against, you know, not something at work. It was against me, my person. Instead, I could take that on a professional level, because actually what we were discussing were like different views on what we should optimize. I was thinking company, I was thinking I was thinking long term. And the other person was thinking, my team, shorter term, we need these revenues. And, you know, and it was like, you think this, you think that, you do this, you do that, which obviously didn't come to any end. But if we would have like surfaced this, we could have talked about, okay, what do we want to optimize, long term or short term? It's not you, it's not me, it's a business decision. But I mean, I couldn't do it then because I couldn't realize that we had these different things that we valued as important because I didn't do the work with myself. The other thing that you can use value for is for your career. And because you've done all this work, you know how you create your best impact, you know what you have achieved already, and you know what you want. So here are 4 things that you can do with it. First thing is interviewing. I've been on both sides of the interview table, but lately I've been interviewing a lot of candidates. Almost everyone asks, what are the company values? This kind of like standard question. But I don't know how many could answer back, what are your values? And do those values align with the company? Because if you don't know that, I mean, yeah, probably everyone needs a job that is like here and now sometimes. But if you want something that like holds long term, you need to be able to see if you're on the same page. Another thing, and I want to spend 1 second about this, is defining the next step of your career. I have the privilege of talking with a lot of people working with product development and mentoring them. And one pattern is really clear, is that the majority of people think that career is linear. So I'm an individual contributor, then I need to be a lead, then I need to be a VP, then I need to be a CPO, and then I need to do this, because otherwise I'm not successful and I'm not happy. What happens though is that when actually they arrive in that I need to role, they are miserable. And why? Because the job is really different. So if you think that, you know, you want to work with the team, you want to work with the data, you want to be there, and then you become a VP when your work is working with stakeholders and people, you're not gonna like your everyday life, right? So if you know what you like, where your energy is, you can also make more meaningful decision in what actually will make you happy and not just like, you know, something that you feel like you must do. This is another one close to my heart. And we use this term quite a lot, imposter syndrome, but I mean, everyone feels like you're not enough. You see on social media someone doing better, someone like more successful, someone that is doing things, you know, in a way that you never could. And I mean, especially when you take like bold steps, I'm there all the time. But that exercise with the Miro helps me. It gives me comfort because sometimes when I'm like doubting myself, I doubted myself, is it me or the brand I worked for example? Then I was like, yeah, but I've done this even when the brand was not there. So there must be something about me, right? So it gives you like this push forward that can really help you. And at the end of the day, it will make you a better team player because you are able to connect better with others, or at least to surface those differences. So maybe you're thinking about like, okay, you've done all these things with your coach and you told us, I mean, what have you done with all this work? So that palm, I realized with all this work that I was that palm trying to grow in the middle of the North Pole. So that was like the bigger realization to me. So what that led me to is that I stepped down from my CPO role of one of the big tech company here in Stockholm, and I started my own business as an advisor. And that decision felt excruciating, because it's almost like I was living something that many people dream of, that must do the thing that, you feel like on your shoulder. I was there, and it was not easy, but I mean, I've made that decision, some months ago, and now I feel more like this palm. And this is also the reason why I wanted to share this with you. And I'm definitely not arguing that any of you should do any move or leaving the job or like doing anything like that. Please don't, unless you're really like, let's talk about that later, but don't do it. But what I want to argue, and the thing that I would like all of you to take with you, is please take the time to work with your values. Because your values can really be your true differentiator. You can be that person that walks in a room and it's full of energy because he or she loves what she's doing, right? You can be that person that is great at working with people and always, solving those conflicts because you're ready to create like this distance. And probably that person that will be given like the hard task, that will be given the promotion. So please invest in this time also for yourself, because you will be able to create a better impact. If you want to follow my journey, you will find me here. And I want to finish just with one final story. And the final story is that this stage, I've been many times sitting there, but staying in this stage is really important to me, especially at the beginning of the year. And what I mentioned that when I moved to Sweden first, I had this bold, maybe naive dream. I was working in fashion in Milan, and I was like, okay, I'm come to Sweden. How hard can it be? I've done it like in Milan, right? I should be able to do it in Stockholm. Turns out I couldn't. So what happened? I like rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection, and I felt so small, and I felt so useless, and I felt like, why the heck am I even here? And there was a thing on Friday mornings where I was going to give me some energy, and it was Creative Mornings. So back then I was like, those Fridays when I was there and listening to people, like, my bubble and my like cloud in my head disappeared. So to me today, I hope that I was able to give you some bit of inspiration to make your 2025 a little bit brighter. Thank you.